Hey everyone, welcome to our way too early 2024 college predictions video for the Texas Longhorns. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to be taking a look at the schedule for the Texas Longhorns for the 2024 college football season, going game by game, predicting what games we think they're going to win, which games we think that they are going to lose for this upcoming season. Now, go ahead and do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe. We cover everything college football and NFL football as well. Season's just around the corner. We will be breaking down every single team's schedule for the 2024 season, going over their wins and losses. And also, once the season starts, every single week we go over every single game, do the money lines, spreads, and the over-under. So hit that like button and subscribe. Like I said, we're looking at the Texas Longhorns today. This is a team that is stacked. They are built for the future. They have a lot of depth. They did make the college football playoffs this past season. They did lose some key playmakers. They lost Brooks. They lost Worthy. They lost Mitchell. Some big guys. They lost guys on the D end. They lost guys at the tight end position. A lot of playmakers gone. But Texas is a top 10 roster in all of college football. So they have the next guy up. They have the depth to be able to absorb those losses. And Quinn Ewers did come back at the quarterback position. So he is running it back. If he does get injured, they still have Manning there as the backup. So they have a lot of depth. With Brooks being gone at the running back position, someone else is going to have to step up. So he did get hurt this past season, but they were really deep at running back. The next guy up that they have coming, they still have Baxter, they still have Blue, they have Clark. With Worthy and Mitchell gone at wide receivers, potentially both first-round picks, you still have Cook, Bond, Moore, Bolden, lots of playmakers there, and Sarkisian has recruited this team top 10 every single year since he's been there. So they're ready to play. They, with Oklahoma, are now joining the SEC this year, so their regular season schedule is going to be a little more difficult than usual, but this team is built to be able to run it, and even if they do trip up, 12 teams get in the playoffs this year. So if you potentially go 10-2, you could still potentially make the 2024 college football playoff. But let's get things started, kicking things off and looking at our Longhorns schedule. So they kick off the regular season Saturday, August 31st. We have the Colorado State Rams. This game is going to be in Austin, Texas. This game's obviously going to be a blowout. It's not going to be close in any way whatsoever. But with those new players coming in at running back and wide receiver, this is kind of a warm-up game for the Longhorns to get their first-string roster some real game reps. So as they get into SEC play, you want a couple cupcake games to kind of get things started, get the team warmed up. That's what this game is. Quinn Ewers wants to show out this year. This is his last season. He has to play a little better than he did second half of last season. Texas, though, they're going to win this game. This game shouldn't be close. I'm going to think it's going to be about a 40-17 type win. Don't forget, Texas Longhorns last season had a top 25 offense, had a top 20 defense. So their defense is also going to be out for blood coming into this year, but they are replacing some guys on the D-line. So Texas starts things out 1-0, and then things get rough right off the bat. So the very next week, Saturday, September 7th, at Michigan Wolverines. This is a potential top 10 matchup. Both teams top 10. Props, though, for Texas. So Texas has a way more difficult schedule going from the Big Ten into the SEC, but they still have a top 10 out-of-conference matchup second week of the season. So they're not sparing anything this season. They're going to be running through the gauntlet. We have the Michigan Wolverines, who are the defending national championships, but obviously they lost Harbaugh. They lost J.J. McCarthy. They only have 3 guys coming back on their offense as a whole. So it's a complete rebuild. Sherrod Moore is now the head coach there. They're still going to have a good year, but they need to retool because a lot of their guys were 3- and 4-year starters. So they basically have the next guy stepping up now, but they don't have any reps under their belt. This is going to be a really physical game. This is a potential slip-up game for Texas. Texas will probably be the favorite here. Michigan's defense still has a lot of starters coming back. I think they have 8 starters coming back. So they're going to keep this game close because Michigan's defense is solid. They're still going to be a top 15 defense in all of football. They were number 3 last year. There's not going to be much of a step off, but will their offense miss the weapons from last season? I have Texas winning this game on the road. Really close, 1 possession less game. I'm thinking Texas probably wins like a 28-24. Very close game, but there's a slight possibility that Michigan could steal this game. So Texas better not take this lightly. Texas is now 2-0. Next game they move on to Saturday, September 14th, UTSA Roadrunners. UTSA is not a bad team, but Texas is just coming off of a really physical game. They're probably going to be beat up. They're going to be tired. They're going to be wore out. If they lose to Michigan, they're going to have to rebound and find their confidence. If they win, they need to not get lackadaisical coming off of that physical win because they're going to be beat up. And this is about the point of the season when injuries start coming in after these physical games. Texas is going to run it up on UTSA, but after that physical game, they're probably going to pull their starters pretty early second half. They don't want to take the chance of anyone getting hurt prior to starting SEC conference play. Look for the Longhorns to win this game, move to 3-0. They should win it pretty convincing. I'm going to say that the Longhorns win by, let's say they win about 40-18. And they're 3-0 moving into our next week. Who we have coming up next? The ULM Warhawks. This game is also in Austin, Texas. This game is also not going to be close at all. Just another warm-up game. They had that tough out-of-conference game versus Michigan. They have a couple cupcake games that are out of conference going into SEC play. They're going to win this game. It's not going to be close. This is probably going to be a massive blowout. I'm going to say it's going to be 50-13. Texas wins. They move to 4-0. After that, we're now starting conference play. Mississippi State Bulldogs. This isn't Mike Leach, Mississippi State's team. This is a team that fired Zach Arnett as a first-year head coach last season. They are bringing in Jeff Lebby as the head coach. The saving grace for the Longhorns is they know Jeff Lebby's offense because obviously he was the offensive coordinator at Oklahoma. So they've played his scheme before. They're going to be familiar with it. Massive talent gap between these two teams. Mississippi State, complete roster overhaul, complete roster flip. This is not going to be the same team they were last year. They don't have depth. They don't have the talent yet in any way to be able to match Texas. And Texas is going to be a very physical team this year, running the ball and on their D-line. Look for Texas to me, they're going to put a beat down on Mississippi State. I think they're going to win probably like a 44-20 game, and they'll now move to 5-0, undefeated. They started out the year top 10. At this point, they could possibly be top 5. Then Saturday, October 5th, they have a bye week, so they have some time to rest, recuperate, and then they get right back at it. Saturday, October 12th, there it is. Oklahoma Sooners, who are probably also going to be ranked at this point. Texas wants some revenge here. Why? Because they lost to Oklahoma last season. Really close game. Quinn Ewers wants to make up for that loss. Sarkisian wants to beat Oklahoma. He can't take anything for granted. The SEC's tough. But Oklahoma really wants to win this game. Not just because it's a rivalry. New conference, tough schedule. You need to win every single week. Both teams are rebuilding towards the future. Texas, this game's probably going to be a pretty close spread coming into this week. It is a rivalry game. But I have Texas coming back and getting the win here. They have a very experienced quarterback, Quinn Ewers. If something happens to him, they have Manning. They are replacing some of the big-time positions. Oklahoma's not. Oklahoma, they do have a first-year starter, Jackson Arnold. Dylan Gabriel did transfer to Oregon. But this game could go either way. With these rivalry games, you never want to take it for granted. Oklahoma could definitely win it. But I think Texas, this game is the opposite of last year. Texas gets it in the fourth quarter, goes down the field, scores. They always have a really good kicking game. They always play good special teams. I have Texas winning this one in a close one, probably a 33-28 win, but still a solid performance from the Sooners. Do not underestimate the Sooners. Brent Venables, he can recruit, and he works the transfer portal really well. But Texas moves to 6-0. They're on top of the world right now. After that, another rough game, Saturday, October 19th, number 1 Georgia Bulldogs. Georgia's probably going to be number 1 at this point. A lot of people do have them returning as the best team in college football. Some people thought they were the best team last year, but they slipped up and lost to Alabama at the very end of the season. This is going to be a stacked team with Carson Beck, but they lost some of their biggest playmakers from last year. They lost McClunky, they lost Bowers, completely different team. Other guys have to step up to be the main playmakers, but they did get a couple transfers. And watch out for Colby Young, who is the wide receiver transfer from the University of Miami. We know Georgia's going to be bringing in a top 15 defense. They're going to be bringing in a top 15 offense led by Carson Beck. But Texas, there's not much of a talent gap here. These teams are very close. Georgia's probably the more talented team position to position, but there's not enough of a gap for it to make that much of a difference. Texas is not afraid of Georgia. They've gone to Alabama, beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa. The key here is Georgia's coming to Austin, Texas. We're seeing a Georgia-Texas matchup. Texas has the home field advantage. Georgia's probably going to be a very slight favorite here, a 2 to 3 point favorite. But I'm actually going to go with the Longhorns to get the win at home, beat the Georgia Bulldogs, probably surprise a lot of people. They want to announce themselves in the SEC. I have Texas moving to 7-0 here, beating Georgia. But if Georgia wins this game, would I be surprised? Not at all. But it is possible that these teams could rematch again in the SEC championship. It's really hard to beat a good team 2 times in one season. So even if Georgia loses here, they could still win in the rematch versus Texas. If Texas loses, they could still win in the potential rematch for Georgia. No matter what, there's a high probability that they're both getting in the playoffs anyways. But you want to win these games because you want the best seeding potentially for the playoffs. If you win the conference, you of course get a bye week. But Texas is right now 7-0. After that, Saturday, October 26th, Texas has just basically gone through a gauntlet. They're tired. They're wore out. They deserve a cupcake game. That's what they have now. They have Vanderbilt Commodores. They're at Vanderbilt. Really doesn't matter. Let's be honest. They're going to beat the crap out of the Commodores. They're going to blow them out, but they're going to be pretty banged up. They might even be resting some starters this game because they just went through a couple back-to-back ranked matchups. But Texas is going to win this game pretty convincingly. Defense will step up and shut down the Commodores. Texas will probably win this. I'm going to say like a 38-13 game. And that's only because they're going to be resting some of their starters. So Texas now is 8-0. Then they have a bye week, get some more rest, and then they come back Saturday, November 9th versus the Florida Gators. This game is also in Austin, Texas. Florida. Billy Napier is getting a lot of hate, deservedly so. They only won 5 games last year, but they probably had the most difficult schedule in all of football last season. And I think they're following it up with the most difficult schedule in all of college football this coming season. So it's a gauntlet. There's a lot of heat on Napier. If he doesn't make a bowl game this year, he's probably getting fired. Florida has to come back to prominence. They're in a good recruiting ground. It's a great historical college football program. Don't underestimate them. They are a tough team. They had, 4 losses, 1 possession losses last season. So they were a competitive team. Mertz actually played pretty well last year. But I have Texas putting it on them. I have them winning this game. Well, I don't want to say putting it on them, but winning by about 10 to 13 points. I'm going to say Texas wins this one like a 35-24 game. And Texas is now 9-0, having a really strong year, first year in the SEC. Then after that, Saturday, November 16th, we have at Arkansas Razorbacks, a complete rebuild, completely different coaching staff here. This team lost KJ Jefferson. He transferred to UCF. Completely different. They're really going nowhere, but for some reason, something about this game feels like it's going to be a close game for some reason. I don't think Texas is going to blow them out. I think they're kind of coasting towards the end of the season. That's what caught Texas off guard last season, was they played pretty lackadaisical up till about week 12. Then they kind of got back to the way that they were playing the first half. I think that happens again this season. Texas wins it, but I think it's a lot closer than people think. I think they win it like a 30-24 game. So the Texas Longhorn fans won't be happy, but nonetheless, you're still 10-0 moving into the next week. The next game we have Saturday, November 23rd, Kentucky Wildcats. Kentucky's one of those teams. They always have a really good defense. They always play really physical under Mark Stoops. They always, get out to a 5-0, 6-0 head start. They get ranked. I've never bought it. Then they just completely nosedive and fall off a cliff and finish the year 6-6 or 7-5. It's probably going to happen again this season. Texas is playing them second half of the year, so I'd say you're pretty safe to beat them because they really only play well first half. Usually, that's just honestly kind of the way that works. So Texas is going to win this game. It is in Austin. I have Texas moving to 11-0 undefeated, winning this game. Probably about a 35-17 game, so a pretty decent win. And then a big rivalry matchup, Saturday, November 30th, final game of the regular season at number 25, Texas A&M Aggies. They haven't played in a really long time, so we have one of our old college football rivalries coming back since Texas is now in the SEC. They get to pick up where the rivalry left off, playing the Aggies. This is a game for potential bragging rights in the state of Texas. The Aggies Very talented roster. Jimbo Fisher did recruit very well. And now they have the head coach from Duke. They had a lot of guys transfer out, but this is still a top 15, top 10 roster in all of college football still. A lot of talent there, a lot of speed, quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers. So they're not scared of Texas, but Texas definitely has the advantage. They have the jump. They also have a more foundational team. They've been good for a couple back-to-back seasons now, and they've been recruiting at an extremely high level. They have more talent. They have better coaching, but it really doesn't matter because the Aggies aren't technically too far behind talent-wise. Texas is looking at the SEC championship, looking at the playoffs, so this is a potential slip-up game. Texas is going to be a favorite here, probably a 6.5, 7.5 point favorite roughly at this point of the year. I'm actually going to go with the upset. I have Texas losing here. Now, the price sounds completely outrageous, but I think there's going to be a slip up somewhere. Texas is going to lose a game that they're favored in. It could be the Aggies. It could be Georgia will probably be favored, but they could lose that one. Or it could be the Michigan game. One of those games, Texas is going to lose it. I'm going with the Aggies, just they haven't played them in a while. Aggies aren't having a great year. They're probably, going to finish the year 7-5, 8-4, maybe like 9-3 at best. So Aggies are playing for blood. They want to finish the season on a high note. Texas, they're in the playoffs. They're probably going to the SEC championship anyways. They might not care as much. They can technically afford a loss. I hate to say that, but I'm going to go with them losing this game. But it's going to be close, like a 30-27, or potentially the game could be a shootout. Let's say like a 37-34. Texas loses this game. Doesn't really matter. I have them finishing the regular season 11-1. They could potentially finish undefeated 12-0. That is very possible. They have the talent, but I have them slipping up, finishing 11-1, but still probably getting into that SEC championship. Who's going to be in the SEC championship? You have Texas, you have Alabama, you have Georgia, you have LSU, you have Ole Miss. There's a lot of potential matchups there. But either way, if you finish 11-1 in the SEC, you're guaranteed a spot in the playoffs. If they finish 10-2, they could still conceivably get in the playoffs. But like I said, if you win the conference, you get the bye week. That's what Texas wants. They want to get into the SEC championship, first year in the SEC, and show that they've been as good this whole time. They just weren't given the chance. Look for Texas to have a strong year this season. That's my breakdown of the way too early 2024 Texas Longhorn schedule. Like I said, please hit that like button and subscribe. If you have any comments, drop them below, and I'll make sure to respond. Thanks.